we turn this painting into this sound. And if you haven't already, I would definitely recommend checking out the previous episodes. Here is a little clip of both episodes. And so yeah, like the previous videos, we're going to go ahead and import the Picasso painting that we went ahead and got as a PNG file. And we're going to go ahead and recreate that sound that I showed you guys in the very beginning. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is turn on oscillator A and oscillator B because we're going to be using both of these wavetable editors. And I'm going to go ahead and just drag and drop the old guitarist from Picasso into both of these editors. And I'm going to open up the editor. I'm going to go ahead and remove DC offset, crossfade for both oscillators. I'll remove DC offset, more crossfade, and there we go. We have both of our paintings. And the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is create this kind of shape inside of LFO1, something like that. Then for LFO2, I'm going to go ahead and click default, go to basic, and click on sine wave. Then for LFO3, I'm going to go ahead and create this kind of shape. So yeah, that's perfect. Then we're going to head back to LFO1, make sure the mode is set to free. Then for LFO1, we're just going to make sure that the rate is set to 2 bars. I'm going to go ahead and adjust this a little bit. Then for LFO2, set the rate to 4 bars, and then also set the mode to free as well. Then for LFO3, make sure it is set to retrig, and the rate is set to 116. Sweet, so I think we have all of our LFOs that we're going to be using set up, so let's go ahead and start modulating different parameters. So for LFO1, we're going to be modulating 2 things, and those 2 things are going to be inside of filter 1, so we're going to go ahead and turn that on, and we're going to go ahead and look for band reject, which is going to be inside of MISC, and so here it is down here on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and set the cutoff to 156, set the width to 7%, go ahead and drag and drop the LFO onto the cutoff, set the modulation to around 18%, and then we can go ahead and drag and drop LFO1 on the width, and you can set the modulation to around 25%. And the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and boost the resonance to around 55%. That is perfect. Now we're going to come over here to LFO2, and we're going to drag and drop on both the fine tunes for our oscillator A and oscillator B. Then I'm just going to go ahead and adjust the amount a little bit for the fine tuning. And then for the second oscillator on oscillator B, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to inverse it a little bit to around like -20, -15%, just to get a little bit of detune. I'm also going to go ahead and set the unison to 8 for both of these. So there will be a total of 16 voices for each oscillator. And you can go ahead and turn up the detune a little bit for both of these. And for oscillator A, I'm going to go ahead and set this to 88. And for oscillator B, I'm going to go ahead and set this to 200. Now I'm going to drag and drop LFO2 on our first wavetable oscillator. Oscillator A, and I'm going to go ahead and set the modulation to around 12%. I'm going to do the same thing to oscillator B for the wavetable position, drag and drop LFO2 over wavetable position. Then I'm going to set the modulation to around -9%, and it should sound something like this. And then for our 5th modulation that's going to be on LFO2, it's going to be inside of filter 2. So I'm going to go ahead and send filter 1 to filter 2 and go ahead and turn on filter 2. And we're actually going to be using a comb filter for this. So I'm going to select comb plus under the flanges and set the res to 60%. And I'm going to drag and drop LFO2 on the res. And I'm going to set the modulation to around 21%. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on filter key track. And I'm also going to go ahead and turn the cutoff to 93 Hertz. And I'm also going to go ahead and boost the drive to around 17%. And I think the last thing we're going to go ahead and do is set our envelope 1 and turn up the attack a little bit to around 213 milliseconds or so. And then before we move on to the effects for LFO3, I'm going to go ahead and turn down both of the levels for oscillator A and B and drag and drop LFO3 on the levels of oscillator A and B. And I'm going to set the modulation to around 75% for both of them. That sounds bad. Gosh, that sounds so bad. Okay, it's because we have to go ahead and set the semitone for oscillator A all the way up to 7. Okay, so I'm noticing it's not sounding the way I want it to, so I think I'm going to go ahead and adjust oscillator A's wavetable position to get some more sound out of it, because I think it kind of flatlines at the 0 crossing, which is making the oscillator not output as much sound. Okay, so I went ahead and adjusted the wavetable position to 112, and I adjusted the modulation amount to a little bit, so that way there's a little bit more sound coming out of oscillator A. Sweet, let's go ahead and move on to the effects. So the first thing that I want to go ahead and add is a compressor, multi-band, turn down the thresh all the way and the release down by a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and turn up upwards compression. I'm also going to go ahead and turn on the main volume. Then I'm going to add an equalizer and set it to a high pass filter. So I'm going to set the cutoff of our high pass filter to around 259 Hertz. So it's still sounding like noise to me. I'm going to go ahead and mess around with the wavetable positioning again. Okay, perfect. So I went ahead and moved it to around 120 for the wavetable position. I'm going to come back over here to the effects. The next audio effect I think I'm going to go ahead and add is a compressor. I'm going to set the thresh to around negative 30 decibels, and the release I'm going to go ahead and set to 500, so a pretty slow release. I'm going to go ahead and set the attack all the way down to 0.1 milliseconds, and I'm going to go ahead and turn up the gain. And now we can go ahead and also turn up the main volume for Serum 2. Last thing I think I'm going to go ahead and do is add another equalizer, add another high pass with this equalizer. Then add a peak filter, turn up the gain by a little bit, to around like 3 decibels, and then set the cutoff to around 3000 kilohertz. I'm also going to turn down the Q to 42. And then for our high pass filter, I'm going to go ahead and set it to 200. And there we go, that is our preset. And then the final thing that I went ahead and did was adjusted the res for our filter 2. So I set it to around 70%, and the modulation is still at 21%. Yeah, this is our final sound. I hope you guys have enjoyed these series, and if you want to download these presets, the project file, and the sample pack that I will be releasing along with this other project file that I've been working on, here is a short clip of that. Everything will be on my Patreon for my Patreon subscribers, so if you want to go ahead and check that out, you can. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of the series and the sounds that we created together. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day or night, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.